Hello, this is David Stretanski. I'm a certified Chi running instructor here to share some ideas with you about how to maintain your running program during the winter. Chi running is really all about the simple ideas of biomechanics, principles of physics, and also concepts in nature. And so when the weather changes in the winter, there's a lot of things in nature that can affect us. The first one is obviously the weather, but we also lose daylight. And so the question is how can we keep our running program consistent throughout the winter? And so the first thing in nature is just consider that kind of all the different animals in nature tend to conserve energy in the winter, and they don't overexpend energy, meaning they don't put themselves out too far, they don't put themselves at risk. So the winter is really a time to be consistent in your running and try to maintain your overall fitness level without putting yourself at risk. So how can we do that? Well, the first thing about being consistent is to make sure that you just keep your technique up, meaning keep working on your technique and stay focused on that. And a second key thing is to make sure that when you do go out into the winter and run, that you keep yourself safe, because some simple element of trauma can really create a problem. Whether it's snow or ice, or whether it's the darkness that throws you off, that can really create a problem. And then the third idea is to make sure that your immune system is strong, because in the winter we're susceptible to, again, being affected by the weather, which can put us at a disadvantage. All of those things, whether it be trauma or some type of injury or an illness, can affect that consistency that we want to try to maintain throughout the winter months. Okay? So overall, the idea is consistent and try to be as consistent as you can through your training program, and just keep the momentum going. So the idea is just pick a few days during the week. So the idea is to kind of plan ahead. Right now we're blessed with 7 to 10 day weather forecasts, which aren't always accurate, but it gives us a good idea of where we can fit in those runs during the week. And maybe it's not a 4 or 5 day running program, maybe it's a 2 or 3, but the idea is to maintain that consistency. Okay. The next idea is to make sure that when you do get out, let's wear some appropriate clothing. So we have lots of technical gear, we have layering. I like to particularly wear a wind vest and have the ability to vent to make sure that I stay warm but that I don't get overheated. When I get overheated, then I tend to get too wet and sweaty, and then things like cold and wind can really affect me. And the next idea is to make sure that before you get out there, let's make sure we warm up a little more. When you go out into a vehicle in this type of weather, you always make sure it warms up a little bit, so let's make sure we warm up a little bit. And the best way to do that is to just do a few things inside first. Get yourself ready for your run, and then get your heart rate up just a little bit and get yourself warmed up so that when you do step outside, it doesn't affect you as much. Simple things like a few jumping jacks, some jump rope. If you're into yoga, some nice slow sun salutations can really be a good idea. And then when you get outside, it's not going to affect you as much. Okay? The next idea is to consider where you're going to run. For me, in the winter, I like to make sure that I run in areas where I have opportunities to change my plan. So I do loops instead of doing far out and backs. I also make sure I pay attention to the wind in the weather forecast, so that if I'm going to do a certain particular run, I generally want to run into the wind first, relatively speaking, and then let the wind carry me back, because if I do the reverse, then I could be overly warm and wet and sweaty, and then that cold wind will hit me. I also like to sometimes run crosswind, so if I know the wind's coming out of the east, I will run north-south. I'll go out south and come back north. That way the wind's coming across me and it doesn't affect me directly. Another thing I really love to do, which I was doing this morning, was I was in the woods. I find myself some trails where there's some hills and some valleys, and then you get a little isolated from that wind, and so a cold temperature with wind doesn't affect you as much. Okay. Another idea is to make sure you hydrate. Cold weather running doesn't feel like 90 degrees when you're sweated wet and you know you need to hydrate, but in the winter you still need to do that because you are still perspiring, and most likely it is evaporating off you and you're not noticing it. So make sure you stay hydrated. Okay? And then one last item is that we always have that option of being inside on a treadmill. If you're going to run on a treadmill, be very careful. Consider it a maintenance activity. Considering you're just trying to get your heart rate up, and you're just trying to get yourself moving without putting yourself at some of those risks that we already talked about. Okay? You want to try to maintain a nice quick cadence. You want to try to be as quiet as you can on the treadmill. That's a good indication of low impact. If you've ever been in a club environment where there's multiple treadmills and there's someone near you that's making a lot of noise, you can almost see the impact, the negative stress on that person. Okay? So it's a maintenance activity, and you're really just trying to stay relaxed on this. be very careful, because a treadmill is different than being out on the ground. Okay? A treadmill is you finding balance on a moving object, where outside you're trying to move yourself across a stationary object. It's very different physically. The treadmill will have you a tendency to maybe even reach a little more. You might even slow your cadence to try to find and be comfortable with that balance, and so that can put you at risk. Okay? So be very careful on the treadmill. The other thing about the treadmill is very different mentally. For me, when I run trails, the trails and the earth and the trees are all going by me, so mentally I see that in my vision going by me. When I'm on a treadmill, the room is completely still. So if I were to try to run on a treadmill, it tends to make me a little bit dizzy, because I'm so used to that perception of the world going by me. Okay? So when you get on a treadmill, be very careful. Try to stay in balance. Try to think about cadence being turned over nice and light. Try to stay relaxed. For me, it's just a practice in relaxation. It's 5 degrees out, or it's very dark and unsafe, and I'm just trying to get my heart rate up. Try to keep your heart rate at a very, very simple space. Okay? So those are just some simple ideas. First one is just consider winter is different. Try to be conservative. Gather your energy a little bit, but still keep your mobility, still keep your consistency in your running program. Second thing is plan ahead. Just use the weather forecast and just try to find in your schedule when you can fit in those few runs a week. Next thing is dress appropriately. Okay, figure out what works for you. Third thing is warm up a little bit before you get out into the cold. Fifth thing is make sure you hydrate. And then sixth thing, if you do need to get onto the treadmill, just be very careful. It's a maintenance activity. There's no expectation of speed. It's just trying to get your consistency through self-moving. Okay. This is David Stretanski. I am a certified chi running coach, sharing just some simple ideas in biomechanics, in physics, and in nature to help you keep moving consistently and injury-free and enjoying your running. I can be reached at echifitness.com or facebook.com/echifitness, or on Twitter at twitter/echifit. Email is info@echifitness.com. Thanks very much. This is David Stretanski, and this is 140.6 Media.